So yeah, welcome in everybody. We have Dave Vu here. He is one of the co-founders of Ribbon, and he is here to give us a great presentation on how to be more marketable in the tech industry. And without any further ado, take it away, Dave.
Thanks, Braden. Well, I'm very excited to be talking to everyone here. I think this is a topic that everyone wants to know about, and I can give you a very unique perspective from my experience, especially in this new world where you're trying to navigate and really find that next opportunity for yourself. So the topics I want to touch on, I'm going to keep it pretty light, but I really mostly want to open up the floor to have anybody ask me any questions, especially from my perspective being on the hiring side of various different startups, different companies. But really, I want to start off with my journey so you guys get a sense of my background and my experience and how that relates to the topic I'm talking about. Tell you a little bit about what the job market's looking like these days. We're not going to go to stats. Everybody knows you can find that information, but really just give you the underlying shift and what's happening. A little bit about what employers are looking for, and mainly, there's usually a big list of what employers are looking for, and that varies. But I want to give you my perspective. We hired recently at Ribbon for the whole team, at various different startups again, and tell you what the main things that we're looking for, and then finally just talk about how you guys can stand out within the market. So let's start with my journey. So it's I didn't put any dates here, but it is chronological in the sense that after I graduated from business school, and this is over 10 years ago now. I started on initially in sales. Then I ended up going into recruiting, and then I did some venture capital work. And then I moved into a leadership role at a couple of startups. I just mentioned a couple here, in the HR, like head of people, head of people operations capacity, a couple of startups, and then eventually become an entrepreneur. And the only reason why I want to lay this all out is I want to show everybody that your career isn't always linear, in a sense that you can be jumping from different experiences. And I know a lot of you are doing that. You're shifting your career focus from what you were doing previously, and that's why you're taking the boot camp. That's okay. Don't be too afraid of making these changes if you feel like you're finding a new passion or an area that you're more interested in exploring, and you know that there's growth there. Don't be afraid to explore, because I think what's going to happen is a lot of the experiences and skills that you develop from these places will start to funnel you to an area where why you're getting all these experiences, and it will lead you to maybe one day start your own startup, or you want for a particular type of industry or company. And so one thing I want to quickly highlight is right here around this logo, this yellow logo. It's Ezra, and that's essentially where in 2018 myself and my co-founder met. I joined as employee number one at Ezra. They had a concept and a vision. I was very comfortable at Class Capital in the venture capital side of things. You can imagine much more stable. Class Capital has been around for about 10 years at that point. They've successfully invested in a number of SaaS startups in here in Canada and overseas that has exited. So they're doing quite well. And so I took that leap to go to Ezra based on a initial conversation and coffee with the founders. They were just about to close their round, so they haven't had the money in their bank account. But I felt something in my bones that I wanted to make that next leap, knowing that I eventually wanted to become an entrepreneur myself and start my own startup. That was the opportunity I had to make. I was taking a pay cut, but it didn't matter. That was a great jump and a leap. And the only reason why I'm telling that story is for anybody that's thinking and considering that, it is daunting and scary to make that leap. But once you do make that leap, make the most out of it, and you're going to realize that it's going to accelerate your career if you're in the right situation and you're constantly looking to learn, take on stuff that others don't want to take on. You're going to make leaps and bounds towards where you want to end up. And here at Ezra, I put entrepreneur as a general term, but as Braden mentioned, I'm the co-founder and also a co-CEO with my co-founder. We both met again at Ezra. He joined as one of the first engineers there, and I recruited him and brought him over from England. He was completing his PhD in the machine learning space at the time, and moved over to Toronto, sight unseen. He's never been to Toronto before, but convinced him enough to make the move. And since then, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to both of us. And we're still really good friends outside of obviously working together. So, as I'm sure you've seen all the different headlines, this one is obviously more related to me from a Canadian standpoint, but it's all the same, right? You're hearing a lot of layoffs persisting, bleak economic outlooks. You're seeing headlines like this where layoffs are happening, the economy is shrinking. So what's happening right now? Well, right now, what we're seeing is a shift in the market. It's going from a candidate-driven market, which I put a generous timeline, which is like 2017 to 2022. It probably started a little bit before that, but I remember in 2017 and 2016, 2018, even when I was there at the time, there was just a lot of candidates, and they had a lot of different opportunities available to them. Sometimes you would hear candidates come in, do one interview, and have 6 offers from multiple places. And so companies were fighting for candidates at that time. As things have changed in the economy, it's starting to shift now over to an employer-driven market. We're starting to hear a little bit of that happening in the media. They're talking about how there's more applications for every job. So we don't know when. We know when it started, or if it feels like it's starting right now. We don't know when it's going to end, and that obviously correlates with the economy. From a personal standpoint, we just recently hired candidates, and we have about 6 team members that we hired for. Out of each one of those hires, there was a noticeable amount of applicants. I would say there would be hundreds more applicants per jobs. And so the numbers we're looking at like in the thousands for each role. So what is that shift and what's happening there? Well, the shift in the job market is because of a couple reasons. Here I put context from a Canadian perspective just because of where we are at, but it's really the same. The Canadian economy, or you can replace that with the US economy, shrank by 0.2 to, and I think in US case it was 0.3 percent in Q2. It's expected to lower. The recent numbers I saw was that the economy was shrinking by 0.3 to 0.5, I think, in Q3 in the US. Obviously, as I mentioned before, you're seeing more layoffs. And so that means more candidates are seeking fewer jobs. In Canada, we're seeing more immigration happening. So in the Canadian case, there was 1 million new permanent resident since 2022. That's up 20%. In the US, I haven't seen the numbers recently, but usually it's about the same. And in the last piece is we're seeing a much more push from companies towards more automation. And as McKinsey mentioned, they believe that 50% of jobs can be technically automated. So a confluence of all these things are leading towards a huge shift in the market, along with a few other ones I didn't mention, but I'll quickly mention is remote work is still a thing. So people are able to hire from a pool outside of their local jurisdiction or local territory. This gives them more options from a company's perspective as well, making it more competitive for you guys as you go through your career to find that next opportunity. So what are employers really looking for? There's a million things that people tell you that employers are looking for. For me, it really boils down to these 4 things. The obvious one that I'm not mentioning is obviously you have to have the technical capabilities and aptitude that fits into a particular role. But as I mentioned, when you have thousands of applicants and you're filtering for the technical piece, that's really easy. You filter for that, and then you go into the next layer down, which is like these. For me, there's these 4 main characteristics. The first one is communication, really important. How do you express your ideas and your thoughts really clearly? How do you listen? How do you understand and respond to others' ideas? So, how do you collaborate with people? How do you understand really complex concepts as well? You'll be surprised how much of an issue this can sometimes be. People join teams and companies, they want to work on a particular focus, but it's a team effort. You need to communicate with each other. You might be working on something, you're not communicating clearly with somebody else. That's going to set the whole team back. And I've seen it too many times. It seems so obvious, but it's really a big one that we see all the time. The second one that I always look for is like, how adaptable are you? So that goes back to what I was saying. If you're moving around different places, it's okay. But I want to dig into like understanding how adaptable are you to shifting environments, or what's going on with a particular technology. Why that's really important is that things are moving really fast. Even at our startup, it's a 1-year-old startup. We've pivoted a bunch. We've tried different things, and the people that couldn't adapt, unfortunately, can't stay with us, right? Because the ability to adapt, to be able to take that information, communicate that, adapt, and then move to the next step and hit certain milestones and target, super important. The next two is the creative problem solving. I can't stress this one enough, which is there's multiple ways to solve a problem. Solutions come in various different forms. And so, we try the obvious ones. There's multiple different ways. So if you are a creative and dynamic problem solver, this will give you a complete leg up. And make that be known in your interview. Talk about ways that you solve problems in a creative manner that relates to the actual job in the job interview, and provide examples of that. When I hear that, it perks up my ears, makes me want to engage further, talk about that problem itself. What was the solution? What was the outcome? I don't really care what the result is. I just care about, how did you look at the problem? How did you frame it? What did you think about how to tackle it? How did you communicate that to the team? What kind of resources did you bring in to tackle this problem? In a world where there's so many resources available to you, there's no excuse to be able to not think of multiple ways of tackling a problem. And so this one, I think, is really important. And especially that's very important in an early stage startup, because you can't rely on somebody else to do that for you. If you want to join an early stage startup, you want to be able to communicate that information out and work with the rest of the team on creatively solving that problem. The last one I think you're all doing, which is great, which is showing a commitment to ongoing learning and development. This one is really, really important. It tells me a lot about a candidate and an individual. That person really wants to improve on their current skills, and they're looking at all the different ways of doing that, including taking coding school boot camps. There's online courses. There's tutorial online now. There's mentors you can reach out to, you can access. There's videos you can watch. One question I always ask when I talk to candidates: tell me a topic that you recently learned and teach that back to me. You'll be surprised how many people can't communicate that back, or they haven't thought of it. That's a really big red flag for me. That to me is that person's coming in very stagnant. They're not looking to improve. And so I think that's really important, is continue to show that you're learning new things, because things are moving at a really rapid rate. I can't stress that enough. And so showing that you're learning and just be able to like tap in certain resources is really important. So how do you stand out? And I'm just going to talk in more generalities, is be different, convey your personality. Again, going in a world where there's thousands of applicants applying for a job, you kind of want to be different, either in your messaging, reach out, in the way you answer questions in an interview. Obviously still focus on answering the question at hand, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is be yourself and convey who you are as a person, because the hiring manager on the other side, or recruiter, is really looking at, can I see myself working with this individual for a really long time? So they could be the greatest technical individual, but like, I also want to know, can I work with this individual based on these other criteria I mentioned as well, right? So it's a combination of all those things. Highlight your achievements and your projects. A lot of times people talk very general about a specific skill that they've accomplished. For example, they'll say, excuse me, I'm very organized, as an example, or something along those lines. Well, that tells me nothing, right? So like, highlight a project you worked on, what kind of skills and things that you've done. Highlight those achievements. For me, you don't have to stay at a company for a long time. You could be working on a really interesting project that is the equivalent to, and you only worked there for a few months, the equivalent to somebody working at a company for a really, really long time, because they've learned a lot. They understand the project deeply. They understand the challenges. They can communicate that. So highlight those things that you've done. A lot of times the interviewers will want to just chat about they'll cherry pick a particular project, or they'll say, talk about a project that you're really proud of. Let's walk through that project end to end. What was that like? The other one is verify. Get your experiences verified. And when I say verified in general term, obviously you can do it on Ribbon, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But verification from a standpoint of getting recommendations from your other peers, have that available and ready. That can really bolster talking about the achievements that you've done. So what is Ribbon really? Ribbon is a new professional modern social network. And the idea is that we want to build that around verified achievements and put that information onto the blockchain so that it travels with you as you move throughout your career, from company to company, association, projects, anything that you're working on. The main thing that we want to provide in terms of value, because that's really the underlying piece of Ribbon, is the verification, is really to avoid ads or spam, really to grow a better network, connect with more verified professionals, find a job much faster. So essentially connecting hiring manager with an individual, and not giving you a list of like thousands of applicants. And for you guys on the flip side, not giving you a bunch of companies you're not really sure that's a good fit. We want to match those up really well. And then the final one is giving you the ability to earn from your network, because each one of you has a great connection to a local level network. I use the example of, somebody who's in machine learning or AI. As a recruiter, as a hiring manager, or somebody that wants to tap into that network, they want to leverage somebody who's already in that network. And we built ways for you to be able to earn from tapping you into that network, making it fully transparent, and having them create incentives, referral programs, things like that, where you can earn directly and be able to go to you as an individual. So just highlighting this is just one aspect. We have various different roles in the company. If you're interested, we are opening things up to hire more engineers in Q1, primarily front-end engineers, full stack, even ML AI potentially as well. But we also have a campus ambassador program. So if you're still in school as well, or you're part of another association or group, we also want to bring you on board so that you can tap into that network, spread the word about Ribbon, and we will pay you for that as well. Eventually, that will also live in Ribbon's earning program as well. So I'll stop there. I'll open up the floor to Q&A. And so Braden, any questions from the group?
Absolutely. So yeah, if you guys want to just pop any questions you have in the chat, we can get David to answer some of them. Looks like Lee has a question. He says, I would love to see those kind of roles you guys have opening in Q1.
Yeah, for sure. The best thing you can do is sign up for your Ribbon profile create a profile. So when you go through onboarding, it'll ask you to create a general video intro of yourself. We found that when you create that general video intro, your profile gets viewed much more by others. But we'll also prioritize certain roles because there will be certain requirements. For us, for example, and we'll invite other companies on to the platform as well. They might say there will be a requirement to have X amount of verification plus video intro, and so we would prioritize those candidates first.
Awesome. Manuel's asking if you can drop the LinkedIn. I can do that for you, actually, if you want.
Yeah, awesome.
Just right in the chat. Very cool. Then
yeah, I'm here. So if anybody wants to ask any questions about the interview process, anything at all, I'm happy to answer it here. If not, I'll make myself available as well. Braden can provide my contact information, email, ribbon profile, things like that, and you guys can just even message me directly. And I respond to everybody, by the way.
fantastic. Adam's got a question. He's asking how important it is to have a specialization, for example, a front-end, back-end, ML, or blockchain engineer.
That's a really good question. It depends on what company and what company that you want to join. I would say company of a certain size, they've already established that foundation. And so they're really looking for specialization because they know that they have a certain process and an engine. And so all they're doing is really accelerating that piece. And so there's, they need a certain ML or AI individual. They're going to have that person just work on a particular project. And I've seen that many times when I was at larger companies. When you're a company of a size of 50 and below, I would say, typically you want somebody who has a focus on a particular area, but wants to dabble in other area. So for us in our team, we started by saying, okay, we wanted somebody in the front end side, but that person ended up wanting to do some back end, and they're working and touching on other aspects as well. And they're enjoying that because they're getting to learn and see everything from the ground up. So yeah, specialization I think is really overrated, but it really depends on the company. So really do your research, find out. If you are unsure, I would recommend, and this is a really good best practice for anybody out there, message somebody in a particular role that is similar to yours or exactly the same, and connect with them. You can find their email online. You can connect with them on LinkedIn, eventually on Ribbon as well, and ask to have a coffee with them or a quick Zoom call, just to find out what that role is really like. Because what you're seeing on a job description never matches up to what's really happening.
Awesome. Nathan's asking, in terms of how many applicants you receive, how did you sort through so many, and is there anything to avoid or add to get a closer look?
Yeah. So the sorting is really hard because, you have a few seconds to get somebody's attention. And I say somebody's attention, it's not always me, right? It's myself, my team, a hiring manager, can be multiple people. The biggest one that I saw, and this is why we built out the video intro component, is I got a couple people sending me a video from their phone, telling a little bit about themselves, and then they uploaded that and sent it to me via email. They found my email, so they were resourceful enough to find my email. My email is not hard to find, but so they took that extra step and did that. But they made the email itself really engaging and interesting. They kept it short. They had the video intro. They had a really interesting title title in the email. I'll be honest, it perked up my ears, and then I clicked on it just out of curiosity. Clicked on it, watched it, and I always gave that individual an interview. Even if I didn't end up hiring an individual, I still kept in touch with the individual. There might be an opportunity for them to join Ribbon in the future. I also introduced them to somebody else in my network as well. The reason why is because in a world where there's thousands of people doing exactly the same thing, which is pretty lazy, right? If you think about it, your one-click apply on LinkedIn. One-click apply is the best thing that can happen to a candidate, but it's also the worst thing. It's the best thing because it's really easy and you can apply to 100 different jobs all at once. But you have to remember who's sitting on the other side. Now I'm getting thousands of applicants, so you just look the same like everybody else. So doing these little things that make you different, as I mentioned in the previous slide, be different, show your personality, will be fruitful.
Awesome. Robert's asking, you're not looking for junior developers, correct?
We are not at the moment. We filled out all of our hires for this year, but come January we're gonna start opening things up. We're growing really fast. We're probably one of the fastest social network that's growing out there. We hit 10,000 profiles in less than 4 months. We think we're gonna accelerate this to 50,000 profiles in the next quarter, and then 100 by Q3. And then onwards from there. So we are going to be raising money and more money, growing our team. So create a ribbon profile, stay in touch, and we are going to be opening up a lot of different roles.
Awesome. Lee's asking again, what's the interview process like? What usually stands out to you, and when you're just going through resumes, do you actually read the cover letters if there is any?
That's a great question. This one I hear all the time, and I want to almost like post on my Twitter. I don't have a huge audience yet, but like I want to tell everybody, do not write a cover letter. Cover letter is the biggest waste of time. In this day and age in 2023, you shouldn't have a cover letter at all. Nobody even looks at a cover letter. You're just wasting your time writing that nobody's going to look at. In my 10 years, I never once looked at a cover letter. None of my teams looked at cover letters, and we've hired for probably up to 10,000 people over the last 10 years. Usually people scan through and look for certain key things really quickly. But again, and going back to like standing out, you got to kind of stand out, highlight something that is applicable. For example, when I say stand out, you can even look at a job description and they're talking about something, and you do some research about a company, you realize they're really trying to solve a particular problem, and you have some experience there, or you want to talk about that. Maybe highlight that in the email line, or within the first sentence, or something along those lines, or within your video intro, or something along those lines. But yeah, cover letter I think is a really big waste of time.
On that point, why does it feel in the application process like that is such a pivotal point when it's really not? Like, why do companies expect you to craft this giant cover letter?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's two things. The first one is really companies are always looking for ways to filter people that are really interested in a particular role. So even though they don't look at it, it's their way of saying, well, if you really want to be in my company, I'm going to make you jump through a couple of hoops. And so if you spend the time writing a cover letter, it shows that you actually want the role, especially like I mentioned, in a world where one-click apply is so easy these days, that if somebody writes, that maybe that's a way of filtering somebody. I also think that people haven't been really educated about what people are hiring managers are looking for in this new world. A cover letter is so static. Some people write really long cover letters. If you're going through 1,000, you're not reading through all the cover letters. It's really hard. It's dense. And so, yeah, I personally just think it's not really a good use of time when you could be a little bit more creative in terms of getting the attention of the hiring manager.
Great point. We've got Adam who's asking, do you think that need for newbie general software developers the company can mold is going away with the shift to employee-driven market where companies can be more picky?
That's a really good question. I think about it all the time from our perspective. I can only speak for Ribbon for now, but I do think that in the world where you're going to see senior engineers, if they can't get the exact role that they want, they start going after other roles, maybe one step down as a jump off point as the economy gets better. You're going to start seeing people shifting their experiences and or lowering their bar in terms of experiences in order to get to an area where they think they have an advantage of getting that job. I think there's always going to be a place there for junior recruiters if they have a great aptitude to learn. As I mentioned, they're really hungry. They have shown great passion for what we're building, the vision. That's really important. I didn't even mention that, but I think that's really important when you're interviewing. And I always ask, like, what is it about our vision that aligns with you or resonates with you? And I'm shocked sometimes to hear people's answer. Like, one, they never even looked at the landing page or did any research, because the information is all available for you to find. You just have to dig a little bit. And so when you're not doing that, it makes it really hard. But yeah, like I'd say, juniors would have to probably do more to stand out. But I don't think it's going to go away as long as you are really passionate and really skilled. And even if you have to just join as an intern or do something to get in, you could prove yourself. I think that would be really valuable. For example, we had an individual that was very persistent. She just came out of school, wanted a social media intern or social media role, end up saying, I'll work to prove myself. And since she joined, she's been amazing. I gave her a shot, and now she's going to be with us.
That's super cool.
Yeah, that doesn't happen all the time, but again, if you are really passionate and you demonstrate that, certain doors will open.
Right on. Steven's asking, what weight do certifications carry, such as AWS, cloud practitioner, and the like?
So those are really important as just a baseline, right? A lot of times, going back to, I think one of the questions was saying, like, the filtering process. Larger companies, what they'll do is they'll just filter for certain keywords. So if you have those, I think it's great. For us, actually, it's important as a baseline. We assume that everybody will have a certain baseline of things that you should be experienced with, because again, even though you're joining us day one and we're going to teach you a lot of things, we don't want to teach you everything. We just don't have the luxury of time. So if you have those, you should highlight those, especially if it relates directly to a job description. And this happens so often. I see a lot of people don't do is they don't actually look and read the full job description. The job description is there's a lot of clues in a job description, especially if you write it, the hiring manager writes it a certain way. You should be able to, like, piece together a picture of, like, what they're really looking for and what type of experience. You can highlight those in your conversation, whether it's an interview or your outreach to those individuals.
Awesome. Robert's asking, what about GitHub, stuff like that? How relevant is that to the job application?
Yeah, GitHub's really important. Yeah, definitely highlight that. Excuse me. We definitely look at that ourselves as well. We don't make a decision on, again, just to be clear, we don't make decisions on one particular thing. We look at a candidate holistically, and maybe just because I've been doing this for a really long time, I will have a hunch and I will feel like a candidate might be missing one or two things, because when I have a list of what I'm looking for from a job description, I'm not expecting everybody to hit 10 out of the 10 items, right? If you hit, in my mind, 7 out of 10, but these are 7 crucial piece in my own mind, or out of the 10, there's like 3 really crucial ones and they're missing other pieces, I'm willing to, like, engage, talk to the individual. So if you have a GitHub link, for example, and you have other pieces, I think it just makes the more likelihood of whoever's looking at it to want to connect with you and have the initial conversation, especially if you stand out, make yourself or showcase your personality. That will just add to the reason for the hiring manager to want to reach out to you.
Very cool. Manuel's asking, do you guys have any partners in the cyber field?
We don't at the moment. No, not at the moment.
Awesome. Got a couple more questions, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, go for it.
Awesome. So Barry's asking, what are some good ways to find hiring managers?
So this one, there's a lot of programs out there where you can find people's emails. Like Apollo is a good one. I think it was Rocket Reach. Go to Twitter, like message the person on Twitter. Some people have a presence there. Great. If they don't, go to LinkedIn even. Eventually on Ribbon, we're going to match people up. So we're going to like even help you out. So we're not going to, because with LinkedIn, ends up happening is you find that in a hiring manager, you reach out, but now you're also, again, no different than a job application. You're now one of hundreds of people in their LinkedIn message, especially if they're hiring for multiple roles. It's just too much sometimes. But eventually on Ribbon, what we're doing is we're gonna suggest people based on like, let's say the videos are available already. You have X amount of verification from your peers, former manager from a particular job, or even like at the Tech Academy, they verify your courses that you've done. We'll filter that and then we'll match the hiring manager with you. And then what we will do to make that even more enticing, which we're about to launch probably in the next month, is called Ribbon Earn. And I mentioned a little bit about this, where the hiring manager can set or the candidate can set a certain monetary amount. So you might say like, in order to connect with me, it'll be $1, for example. And what that does is that it will create a barrier for people that really want to connect with you, if to force that message to jump to the top of the list. Because in a world where people can just message a bunch of people, now there's a reason. If you really want to connect with a certain individual, there's a certain monetary amount.
That makes sense. We've got another question going back to the point on resumes. It's asking, what's your take on keeping your resume to one page, especially for junior devs?
I used to say one page, but like it's hard, right? If you have a few things you want to highlight, I definitely will say no more than 2 pages. That's for sure. It just becomes a harder read, and the more dense it is, it's also even harder. I think it's the same rule that applies when you're doing a presentation. Is that I think it's something like minimum amount of text, and there was a number I can't remember off the top of my head, and more visuals, because I think as human beings we just don't digest dense blocks of text, especially if you're doing lots of different, you're going through and looking a lot of different resumes. As a junior person, keep it within 1 page. Highlight some key projects at the top. You don't have to have the same structure as a regular resume. You can like cherry pick and like even highlight a project that you're like, wow, I'm so proud of this because I've learned so much from this particular project. What is that scope? What does that look like? And then show your experiences later on, and then include GitHub, Ribbon profile link. If you have a Twitter account, you're active and you're talking about your industry, things like that, show that off as well.
Super cool. We've got 2 more questions here. This one's from Santiago. He's asking, will you guys be looking for associate product managers at some point?
Great question. We will be. That's probably going to be Q2, Q3 of next year. Right now, I am the de facto product manager, and same with my co-founder. Early days, usually, it's founder-led sales, founder-led product, just because we have the expertise, we understand what we need to build as a foundation. Eventually, we're going to bring somebody in and take that to the next level, but we're probably looking at Q3 of next year. And that role, by the way, is going to be remote as well. For the first 10 hires, I'm trying to build a culture, so we're looking for people more around like the Toronto, maybe even the New York area for now. As we grow to the next level, we're looking to hire people from all around the world.
We had a talk last week kind of talking about the state of going from remote work, which was super, super almost necessary during the pandemic, to how much more employers are kind of wanting more people to come back in. And I think there was a stat, something like 33% of all jobs on LinkedIn in 2021 were remote, and now it's down to 8%. How does your company kind of prioritize that?
Yeah, there's a really interesting trend happening. I think it's being led by larger organization, but I think the context of that, from what I understand, is that larger organizations are also being invested by larger funds like BlackRock and JP Morgan and things like that, who also in turn has a relationship with large real estate companies, because that's part of their portfolio and their holdings. So there's a combination of things that are forcing those companies to bring people back in. I do think there is a world where being in person is really helpful as well. But I think for us, it's more of a hybrid approach, because I know myself personally, like there's days where I just need to go somewhere other than sitting with other teammates in an office space, because I need to have a spark of inspiration and I need to be by myself. Giving that flexibility, I think, is really important. And we've seen that it works during COVID. So it's really weird to see that companies are now swinging the pendulum all the way back. I think the reality is it should be somewhere in the middle, giving you the hybrid approach.
Totally makes sense. And then last question here from Lee. He's asking, for junior devs, do you prefer to see a balance of or more one-sided in terms of professional experience, even if it's not for the role of an SWE, or more projects?
For us, if you have some experience, great. I in my mind already, if you're a junior, I'm not expecting you to have a long list of experience from companies. So I would say highlight projects. Some of the best developers I've hired that are junior, and we gave them a shot at not only Ribbon but other companies as well. They've shown projects that they've worked on the side, like that they've done. For example, they'll say, "Oh yeah, this is something I was interested in with the blockchain, and so I started learning about ERC20, and I created my own smart contract, and and I did this, and I used ChatGPT to help me with some of the code, or I got somebody senior to help me out." But like, you start seeing them walk through that whole thing, and it's very impressive, because it goes back to what I was saying about this desire to want to learn and improve. That to me, and I'm looking at that junior individual as like, I'm gonna use a sports analogy here. You're looking at that person as like potential rookie with lots of upside, and so you're investing in that person, knowing that that person has a massive upside, and you're going to get that person before your competitor does.
Totally. Awesome. Dave, thank you so much. That was incredible. And I really am excited to see where Ribbon goes from here. If no one has anything else, then I will link Dave's LinkedIn once again. Do you want me to drop the email in for them as well?
Yeah, do you want me to do it? I'll just do it right now. Real quick,
yeah, of course.
Yeah. So here, I'll try to get it to everybody. I just get a crazy amount of messages from all over these days, so I do my best. If it's not me, it's one of my team will definitely reach out and connect with you. The best thing I'm trying to prioritize, because so many people are reaching out, is create a Ribbon profile, and I'm trying to prioritize those individuals to chat first, because they now have actually seen and played around with the platform itself. So like, I feel like then they're giving me something for me to give back my time. So to do that, that's also going to unlock a bunch of different features like gated jobs I mentioned, Ribbon earnings. You also going to have the ability to do gated posting. You can ask questions of the community. There's 10,000 plus members already, so you can ask questions and people might be able to help you out. It could be a burning question about internship, your job, anything that you've asked here, you can ask others as well. But I'll drop my email here. And then I'm happy to come back in the future as well. If you want me to talk about a particular topic that you guys want to hear about, I'm happy to dive deeper into some of these topics.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah, we have a section on these meetups where people are allowed to suggest different topics they'd like to hear about. So I'd love to connect with you in the future about maybe that.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. But yeah, Dave, thanks again for joining.
No problem. Thanks, Braden. We'll talk to you guys and everybody else soon, and have a great Friday.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. Take care.